Good morning. Good evening. I said good morning. The proper response is to say good morning back. You guys being rude in chat already. Alright. Am I doxing myself here? It looks like the answer is no. Looks like the answer is no. Okay. Here we go. This is my bracket for the Falco Bracket Challenge. As you can see, I am Popgun the Humble, because who else would I be? Let's see, is there a way to, like... There is, isn't there? To old person this? Yeah, let's make it look like that. Look at that. Screen share. It's 6:50 p.m. No, it's not. I know I got the full screen. I just wanted to blow it up, make it easier to see. But now you can't see any of the team names. I made it too big. All right, there we go. That's a healthy looking thing right there. Okay. Auburn versus All-State, divided by State Farm. I'm going to go with Auburn. Blue Birds over the Dirty Birds. Hail to the victors. Not smart enough to beat A&M. Man, I get a lot of Indiana talk where I live, obviously, and a lot of Indiana folks are not happy that North Carolina is in the bracket over them. You both suck. It's like 4-2 teams that complain about not making alpha bracket and lowing. You lost twice, sweetheart. I don't know what to tell you. If you want to make the tournament, try not sucking the entire year. Maybe that makes a little bit of a difference. Ole Miss beats whoever this is. Iowa State, Marquette, they usually do good. Michigan State, sure. I don't even know who Brian is. Let's just move Auburn on down here. We'll take Michigan in that one. Iowa State, we'll get past them. And then we'll just move Auburn on down. How does that work? Duke, with or without Cooper Flag, can beat whoever these guys are. Baylor, Quack Attack. How many Akron fans do we have in chat here? Sucks to suck. VCU, give me the big fat sea cows to take care of the Cougars. Wisconsin, St. Mary's, screw you, Vanderbilt. And I would love to see Robert Morris win this one, but that ain't gonna happen. Bama's going all the way to the Final Four. We'll take VCU to be tricky. We'll make them the silly team. Put the Ducks in there. Let Alabama beat up on Duke, because why not? Let's get this right side out of the way. Houston. I don't even know who SIUE is, and I've never heard of that, so that probably means they have a CCA team. But they're not going to beat Houston. Gonzaga, they suck. Clemson. A 12 team has to win, right? We'll put Colorado State beating Memphis. They'll make that. I don't know about that. Oh, Purdue. All you Purdue lovelies are just going to have a hissy fit if we don't put them down here. This is why I hate Falco's Bracket Challenge, because it's like 80% Purdue kids, and they ride or die with Purdue. And last year was the one time Purdue actually produced something. So it's just like, all right. But Clemson's going to beat Purdue, by the way. Houston. Well, we have to have a tricky upset somewhere. We'll say Clemson goes all the way here. Now, here's the problem with this. Illinois over Texas. No, we'll make this the silly pick there. Kentucky. I am a huge Kentucky basketball fan. I was born into it. My 3 favorite teams, Chicago Cubs, Los Angeles Rams, back when they were the St. Louis Rams, but I'm still a Rams fan, and Kentucky Wildcats on U of K. I'll be the first to admit, they are not a 3 seed. There's somebody on the seeding council who had an agenda that really loves Kentucky for some reason and really hates Tennessee, because the 2 seed in this bracket with Kentucky is Tennessee, a team that has lost to Kentucky twice this year. They've been swept in the regular season. So, yeah, we'll put Tennessee up here, but Kentucky's just going to steamroll all these clowns. They're going to the Final Four. What are y'all going to do about that? UCLA, sure. Are we the Bruins? Yes, we are, which means Alabama's going to beat Kentucky again. That one's not going to be pretty. We'll have the funny matchup, and we'll give it to Auburn. How about that? Tiebreaker, combined score 142. I guess I got to do this one. Florida. UConn, gosh, their coach has been a real turd muffin this season. Oklahoma buries them alive. Grand Canyon, that is not a college, that is a landmark. Maryland clearly wins that. Mizzou's been having a good season. Sorry, Drake, but you've taken enough L's the last couple of years. Who is this? They're going to beat Texas Tech. Scrub-ass school. Kansas, they suck. Omaha. Just straight up Omaha? That's it? The Peyton Manning University? St. John's is going to run into some trouble here. I'm very SEC biased, it looks like. Missouri's going to make the upset kind of situation there. There we go. So there's the winning bracket. And I'm going to go off screen to submit that, just in case my name pops up there, which it doesn't. I'm Popgun. Bracket name is... I would like to provide my personal information to Nissan. I don't want to do that. I don't want to play for prizes. No thanks. Go to hell. Nissan. All right, what did you guys have to say about all that? Illinois hate is wild. They hate themselves. What do you want me to say? Why is Onk even here? I don't know. I saw something about their athletic director was on the seating council, but like recused themselves. It's like, I don't know. Warriors get to play another team with their superstar out. This is a Nissan driver. Yeah. I don't know if I'm plugging things here, but we drive Toyota and Hondas. Buy American. Why? So it'll break down in 2 years and you get to buy American yet again. SEC Final Four is crazy? Probably. The fun thing about, well, the not so fun thing about these bracket challenges, Miss Popgun usually kicks my ass in these March Madness things, and I actually pay attention in college basketball. I think with how random a single elim best of one tournament is, I think the less you know, the better. Because it's just like, oh, well, I just got a feeling about these teams. Like, having a feeling seems to be better than having an actual, like, informed opinion about these kinds of things. Could you imagine a Splatoon tournament, single elim, best of one? Like, that's crazy. Like, that's a scary situation for even an FT win team, because all it takes is one Rainmaker. Best of one, single elimination, Rainmaker only tournament. There's no way of knowing who's actually going to win that. FT win might not make top 4 in that, just because it's so easy to get kind of screwed over in situations like that. Who'd sign up? Next Super Jump. $1,000 tournament. Best of one, single elimination, Rainmaker only. That would be fun. That would be a lot of fun. It's from Paper Mario 1,000 Years Door, by the way. The moon base. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Popcast. Whenever you're listening to this, whether it be live or VOD, Twitch or YouTube, while you are filling out a bracket for Falco's NCAA Bracket Challenge, trying to find a definition for the word worryum, canceling your LUTI set 10 minutes after the agreed upon time because your team is disbanding. Whatever it is that you're doing right now, appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this. Unless I don't. This is a reality check for some of you. If your team's LUTI record right now is currently sitting at 0 wins and 0 losses, here's what you need to do. You need to go knock on your captain's door, your team captain's door. You need to go knock on it. You need to pick them up, princess carry or over the shoulder, whatever kind of relationship you have with your captain. You work that out. But you pick them up, you take them above the ship, and you throw their ass overboard, and you get a new captain. You get to be the new captain. You find a sub to replace that person, and you just move right on, because there is no reason to be 0-0 right now on Monday heading into week 3. I get it. Look, we're all human beings on a crazy time to be on planet Earth right now. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's personal lives that everyone has to deal with. If school wasn't a thing, paddling pool would have 60 teams every single Wednesday. At the rate we're going, maybe school won't actually be a thing in a couple of years. Just hang on. It's a bumpy ride for all of us. But come on. Some of you are about to play a 5-match gauntlet, best of 9 sets on a Sunday afternoon in April at the rate you're going. Play your doggone matches. Gosh, you signed up for a league actually playing it. Crazy times. News of tournaments may be of interest to the casual listener of the Popcast. It is Low Ink Week. If you're here because you're a DivX team and you're wondering what I'm going to say about you, you are still banned from Low Ink. Don't even try. But it is Low Ink Week. Registration closes on Friday. There is going to be a Low Ink preview episode of the Popcast on Friday as well. But I'm going to be busy. I'm doing a podcast today. I'm going to do a podcast on Friday. I'm also going to make a guest appearance on the CCA's podcast on Thursday. So that's 3 podcasts in the span of 5 days, plus Low Ink this upcoming weekend, plus a Low Ink episode of the Popcast, and probably recapping week 3 of LUTI as well a week from today. So I'm going to be busy. We're making content out here. We're on that grind. Now, if you are a DivX team, there is a Black Lotus Cup that is taking place on Saturday I believe at the same time as Low Ink. I would assume so. Black Lotus being EU, usually have EU favored tournaments with that. So sign up and play in that. If you're not playing a LUTI set at that time, I think there is a prize for that. But the Black Lotus Cup is pretty cool for those of us that just like seeing the higher level players fight each other and they don't really do that often. Black Lotus Cup is a good opportunity to see that. So sign up for Black Lotus Cup or Low Ink, either or. If you're not doing any of those things, you're probably going to be sitting on your couch watching UNC get destroyed by whoever they're playing that day. Today, we're going to have a chat with OmaZen with our biannual CCA check-in. Now, that is on IPL because it's part of the IPL CCA partnership, that there's an agreement in there that we do a segment on their podcast and they do a segment on our podcast, even though the CCA has been doing a segment on my podcast for the past several years now. It seems like every semester I either have DRF or Mizuno on. So somehow we made a deal to do something we were already doing anyways. That's the best kind of deal, when you trick the other side and be like, hey, why don't we just, this thing we've always been doing, let's just like make it part of a deal. All right, sure. Works out for me. I will take the dub, but we'll chat with that and do a check-in with the CCA. All that and more. But first, let's start with Division X, with the highly anticipated set, the surprisingly highly anticipated set of Moonlight versus Pollo. Unfortunately, I think Pollo forgot to show up for their match, and it didn't go as storybook impressive as it did when Pollo played Black Lotus. So Pollo pretty much had to play their peak in order to beat Black Lotus. They said so themselves on social media after that game where they beat Black Lotus 5-4. They couldn't really tap into that Super Saiyan God form they had to reach to beat Black Lotus when they played Moonlight, and kind of had their welcome to Div X moment. The welcome to Div X moment we thought they were going to get last week, Moonlight delivered on that this time around, and Moonlight securing themselves a spot as the top team to come out of Group A. It seems like at this point the path for them to at least make playoffs is looking pretty good. At this point, if they were to lose to Black Lotus, I think they're still going to be fine. Black Lotus is in a much-win situation when they play Moonlight a couple of weeks from now, but Moonlight's looking pretty good. Some of the pundits thought they'd be doing pretty good. Slide to Win is just waiting around the corner, but they're not in Group A. Moonlight is looking pretty good right now. Oddly enough, and it's crazy to say this because we are going into week 3, but Pollo is still in control of their playoff fate. Kind of. If they win out, there is somewhere awkward way to where they could be 4-1, Moonlight be 4-1, Black Lotus be 4-1. If that was the case, I think Pollo would be the odd man out in that situation, just because their loss to Moonlight 5-0 is the worst loss you can have for a tiebreaker, and their win against Black Lotus, a 5-4, is the worst win you can have in regards to tiebreakers. So if there's an awkward 3-way tie, Pollo's just kind of screwed. So they don't technically control their whole fate, but if they win out and go 4-1, here's what you got to keep in mind. The hard part of Pollo's schedule is over. And if you were to go up to Pollo and say, hey, you're going to start off Div X by playing Black Lotus and Moonlight. If you sign this contract, you are going to go 1-1 against those teams. It's going to be a scrappy win in a game 9, and it's going to be a bad loss, but you're going to come out of that with 1-1 result against arguably the 2 best teams in the West. If you're Pollo, you sign that. You are like, I'm more than happy for that result. So Pollo's in a pretty good situation. It's not cupcakes from here on out. They still have to play really tough teams. And who knows if those teams are still going to be like, okay, now we're like eliminated. We're going to give it our all, or we're fighting for pride or something like that. But Pollo's the hard part's over. On the flip side, another team that is 2-0 in Group A, Life Vest, the easy part of their schedule is over. Now they have to play Moonlight, Black Lotus, and Pollo, the top 3 teams remaining in their group. Life Vest is going to hell for the win that they got in week 1, and they had to scratch and claw their way back into a set for the win that they got in week 2. They're 2-0, mind you, But that was the easy part of the schedule. It starts getting very hard very quickly going forward. So is Life Vest a contender to make the playoffs? If they can upset Moonlight, that would make things very interesting. I don't think it will happen, but this will be the true test. If you were just lucky to kind of get past those other two teams, can you start knocking off the big dogs? If you want to make a name for yourself, Life Vest, you got to be happy about this opportunity of these 3 weeks coming up, but it's going to be difficult. I would argue that Pollo is in a better position to make playoffs today than what Life Vest is. Now, those two teams still have to play each other, and obviously Life Vest is going to be the favorite when they play against Pollo. But just with what they have in front of them, I think Pollo's kind of looking at this and saying, I'm kind of happy with the situation that I'm in. We'll see how the rest of this plays out. On the opposite side of Division X is Group B. A Group B that has managed to somehow play only half of the matches in their group so far. With, I think, one team who hasn't even played one match at all up to this point. Well, congratulations. You get to put Div X in your bio. You still have to play some actual games at some point here. Slide to Win played Heritage and got the 5-0. Okay. All right, fine. You win. You proved you are the top dog still. We got it. Good for you. We can move on with that. Slide to Win is going to make the playoffs. Congratulations. Message well received from them. The question is going to be, who is going to play the role of Robin to the ST Win Batman in the high school play? Well, Manshine and Vacation had a summit earlier last week to find the answer to that. And at the end of that summit, Manshine said, we are more than happy to be the second team to come out of this group. And they demolished Vacation, which pretty much opens up the door for them with whoever's left playing in that group for Manshine to be the team that's coming out as the second place team. Now, Manshine gets an opportunity right away to figure out how they're going to stack off in the playoffs when they actually play, because they play ST Win this week, which is frustrating for me because I still need more time to figure out what the hell Manshine even means. Initially, Manshine to me sounds like body wash for men, but apparently it's the name of an anime soccer team. Which is an anime I haven't really seen. My wife loves sport animes. I'm more into the rom-com kind of things or the romantic dramas. So I haven't really seen that, but I did at least Google the word Manshine, and that is the first thing that came up. But looking good against Vacation. ST Win's obviously going to be the other team coming out of that. We're starting to get a better picture of what's going on in Division X. Right now, Group B seems slightly solidified at this point, barring any crazy upsets. It's Group A that's where all the exciting action is. It's Moonlight, and then I don't know. I feel like we'll have a better answer after this week as to who that second team might be, and how important that Black Lotus versus Moonlight set is going to be other than just Pride. Obviously, it's going to be extremely important for Black Lotus. It's a must-win situation for them. But Div X as a whole, I talked about this before. It's way more interesting this time around. Yes, Div X was cool last season because you had all those game nines, you had all those close sets, you had the team that didn't win a single set push the team that won the entire division to a game 9 when they played in the regular season. That was cool stuff. But these are the brand names we actually care about that are playing. It's so easy to talk about this kind of stuff because everything is interesting in Division X, which is cool to see. The 5 matches that I have that you should be keeping an eye on this week. Obviously, I'm not going to include... I could include Moonlight versus Life Vest, but I can't just sit here and say Moonlight is much-watched TV every single week. Like, there's other teams to be keeping an eye on, but to be fair, Moonlight versus Life Vest, once again, is probably the match of the week that you want to be keeping an eye on. You could probably say Manshine versus Slide to Win, but there's nothing that really suggests Slide to Win is not going to do really well in that set. And I'm not sitting here saying Life Vest should be favored over Moonlight or anything like that, but I feel like that's the more interesting game to actually watch. But here's the 5 other matches that I want you to keep an eye on. Number 1. In Division 1, you have Cherry Wave taking on J-Blast. Those are 2-0 teams squaring off in a tight Division 1 group. The winner of that one's pretty much going to be in the driver's seat to make playoffs in Division 1. In Division 3, I got Serves Up, who just won a set that Nox and I commentated on Splatoon Tourney last night against Birthday Cake. They're taking on Surf and Turf. Those 2 teams are in a group with the Big Fat Sea Cows, who, spoiler alert, we'll probably talk about them later in the CCA segment of the Popcast. But those 3 teams are in a 3-headed monster horse race conglomerate to figure out which 2 of them are going to be making the groups out of Group B, or making the playoffs out of Group B in Division 3. Serves Up and Surf and Turf play each other this week. It's definitely one you'll want to keep an eye on. Be Happy is taking on the Mana Boat Flop Club, which is in Division 4 Group A. There's pretty much a playoff spot that's on the line in that one as well, because both teams are 2-0 in Group A of Division 4. Jam is taking on... Maybe I should pronounce these things before I actually write them down. Jam is taking on Iridescent Mirage, a Div 7 matchup of 2 teams that are 2-0. Both teams had a challenging week 2 before they were able to find ways to get wins out of that. So some scrappy wins coming in here. One of these teams is going to leave 3-0. In the 5th match, I think you should be keeping an eye on across all divisions. Division 8 has 2 teams that are in the running. Both of them likely are going to make the playoffs. So you got basically your group championship match being played in Group 3 in Week 3 right here. Sheer Cold taking on Ink Floyd. That's Group 3 of Division 2 that those 2 teams are playing against each other. And now the smooth transition. While LUTI is going on, especially the first couple of weeks, because now the 2-week period is gone. You guys can drop from your tournament without fear of being held out of future LUTI tournaments. I don't know if they would actually do that or not. It seemed more like a threat than like an actuality, but you can drop now. 2 weeks are done. You guys have been eliminated from the playoffs. Sucks to suck. But since LUTI is going on, you see tournament participation dip in all the other tournaments. I saw 38 events that happened last week on Sindao.Inc. 38 events. Of those 38, 20 of them failed to get double-digit teams sign up for their tournament. You had a couple of tournaments that only had 2 teams sign up. I don't know if they actually played or not, but yeah, tournament participation was already on live support, and during LUTI season, it's almost non-existent. Even SOS, Paddling Pool, and more notably Little Squid League did see tournament participation dip downwards over the course of the week. But Little Squid League did take place on Saturday with shout-outs. This is the 49th edition of Little Squid League that took place on Saturday. That means the next edition of Little Squid League is going to be the 50th one. And that's awesome. Congratulations preemptively to the LSL team for running 50 editions of a tournament that has been beloved and makes some great products. They make more hats than IPL has ever made. And it's quite honestly the only Splatoon-related hat you will see people wear at a LAN. More people wear Splatoon, more people wear LSL hats at LANs than actually play in LSL. Which is kind of weird, but it's cool at the same time, I guess. The team that won LSL number 49 is a team that almost fell all the way down to silver bracket, which is not the second place bracket. The second place bracket is gold bracket. Diamond bracket is the actual gold bracket, and the reason that is like that is because that's how the Sindao brackets work as well, as trying to be in line with that, even though it only serves to confuse people because gold should be like the top bracket. But fair enough. Diamond bracket goes to the team that won the whole tournament, even though they went 2-1 twice in the group stage, which means they became 1 game away from falling down 2 spots before they can find a way to get up into the diamond bracket and then curb stomp teams from there. So who won this tournament? Well, it was an Arrow team. That's right. One of the many gazillion Arrow teams that used to exist. So who won? Was it the only Arrow team we've seen as of late? Arrows of Gale? No, Arrows of Gale didn't win. Well, they kind of did, but hold that thought. Would it be Arrows of Fire? Remember Arrows of Fire? They were a pretty solid team. They improved over the course of their time. But no, Arrows of Fire didn't come back. It wasn't them. What about Arrows of Lightning? That was a team, right? It was. But they didn't win this tournament either. Okay, well, wasn't there like an Arrows of Ice or Water or something like that? No, they didn't win. What other elements could there be? Arrows of electricity? Light arrows? No, they didn't win either. Arrowhead. Yes, Arrowhead. They were a part of that Arrow group, I believe, and they were actually pretty good as well. Nope, it wasn't Arrowhead. The Arrow team that won LSL, number 49, is the Arrows of Red. What is that? Arrows of Red? That doesn't fit the theme of all of the 500 other Arrow teams that ever exist. How do you go from fire, ice, lightning to a color? That's not how Final Fantasy works. You get the 4 crystals of the elements, and then you get the crystal of the element known as red. That's not a thing. The Arrow clan has completely fallen off if they're just starting to name themselves after colors now. Now, to be fair, Arrows of Gale, once they blew into town, apparently became Arrows of Red specifically for this tournament, because you look at the rosters and you say, okay, this is 3/4 Arrow of Gale. I believe they had a player named Haley that they moved out for Rose. I don't know if like that player was banned by LSL or just wasn't available that day or whatever, but it's essentially Arrows of Gale just naming themselves after a color that doesn't fit the rest of the thing. So be it. It's still a surprising win, though, considering the team that they beat in grand finals was a team that was literally undefeated all the way up. They were steamrolling teams. Probably had people DMing the staff, how did you let this team in? You should have banned them beforehand. That's what happens when somebody gets a really hot streak in low ink. It happens more than you think, honestly. Hey, this team beat us. Could you look deeper into them? They might be Smurfs. We did. They're not. They're good. You're not. That's essentially what it boils down to most of the time. Most of the time. However, when Rainfall went up against Arrows of Red in the grand finals, they did win the first game and then proceeded to lose the next 3. The only 3 games that Rainfall lost the entire game. I got to give it a shout out, though, to the comps from both teams. First off, Rainfall was using a Dread Ringer, which means they're going to make Alpha Bracket in low ink, because Dread Ringers get you in Alpha Bracket of low ink and don't get you anywhere past that. I like the Arrows comp. They'd used a ballpoint, an Octobrush, and a Zenny Splatling. And it's cool to see double Splatling, but more so, I think we're at a point to where vanilla ballpoint is cool again. Like, it used to be the thing everybody was using, but now it's kind of a hipster weapon to use. Like, is ballpoint cool again? Because Inkjet is cool. I wish Inkjet was more meta. I wish we could have seen more Inkjet action in Splatoon 3. There was like a month where it was meta, and then it was just like, well, everything else is just better. It just seems like the special that isn't the most automatic, and the higher skilled you are at it, the better you are at it, versus some of these other just chucking hammers 50 times a match. Oh, here's the one that actually did something, and put that up on social media. Ballpoint just felt cool. So there you go. Congratulations to the Arrows of Red. Your team name doesn't fit your team name makes no sense. What is a red arrow? If I shoot somebody, the redness is going to be their blood, isn't it? Like, isn't that just every arrow that connects to somebody? It's kind of graphic there, Arrows of Red. I think Arrows of Gale just fits a little bit better. There are other events that took place this past week other than just LSL. And before we get to the CCA, let's take a moment to recap most of it. It is now time for the weekly recap. Paddling pool number 310 took place on Wednesday. It was won by Camden, Habibi Gang, and Happy Birthday Mocha. This was a golden paddling pool, which essentially means there is a special badge for it. So congratulations to Candid for getting that win there. Now, the team called Happy Birthday Mocha, if you truly wanted to wish Mocha a happy birthday, you would have won the tournament. Instead, you get a bronze medal, so that's kind of cringe there. SOS number 181 took place on Wednesday night. It was won by Pollo. Just a Chill team took second place, and One Greek All Freaks rounds out your top three. That was a smaller SOS. I believe 36 teams played in it. Not just because LUTI, but the patch came out in the middle of the tournament as well. Group stage round 1 was a completely different tournament from group stage round 3 because a patch came out right in the middle of it. That is quite an interesting tournament there. But Pollo racks up yet another SOS win. Congratulations to them. CCA Season 6 Week 3 recap. By the way, shoutouts to Corona, who I'll be talking to on Thursday, who always sends me the CCA reports. Division 1, Drexel Dragons University got a 4-2 win over University of California San Diego Esports Gold. That is a mouthful. And also in Division 1, the Big Fat Sea Cows got a 4-1 win over Central Michigan, the Chippewas. Division 3, UH Crab and Go got a 4-2 win over HU Volatile Radiance. In Division 7, DPU, the splat.symphony.wav, SUNY, got a win over SUNY, New Paltz Seahawks. Is that team playing in the NC? That team's got to be playing in NIT. They got DPU got a 4-3 win over SUNY. Announcements. The podcast is back this week with a special collaboration between the CCA and IPL. Join Corona and OmaZen on Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for a discussion on how collegiate teams can get involved in the broader competitive Splatoon community, featuring Popgun from IPL. How about that? You can follow them on social media, mainly Blue Sky at CCA Splatoon. CCASplatoon.gov.org as well. The 5 LUTI matches of the week that I like to promote here from last week. Division 1, Octopi got a 5-3 win over Lego Fortnite. I'm assuming we'll talk about Octopi next week in one of the most surprise teams of the week. Division 4, Krusty Sean's Conrap got a 5-4 win over Zephius. In Division 5, Twister Time got a 5-4 win over Sekaz Naga. Division 6, Ink Phantoms got a 5-3 win over Greg. They're 2-0. In Division 8, Ethereal got a 5-4 win over Clownfish. I debated myself and got the wrong time slot there. And that was your weekly recap. Sponsored by... Hold on. Wait for it. Sponsored by Gamers for Giving, a Splatoon 3 charity tournament that is in joint collaboration between IPL and Dapple Productions. They're teaming up to provide you with the quality Splatoon 3 tournaments you have come to expect, all while helping out a good cause. Before and during this event, anyone is able to donate towards the campaign, with our goal being of raising $1,000 to help bring the joy of gaming to hospitalized children and their families. The tournament lasts 2 days and starts on Saturday, April the 12th at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The tournament is on start.gg because the format that we want to run specifically does not exist on Sindao.inc just yet. But another charity tournament collaboration between IPL and Dapple Productions. Gamers for Giving, the official sponsor of today's segment of the weekly recap. And the link to that just went live on the IPL Blue Sky. What perfect timing. But you guys don't care about any of that LUTI nonsense, do you? Here's what you actually care about. The CCA. Oh, I got the wrong join voice. That's what we do. We do that. We hit this button. And then we hit a bunch of other buttons. Pop out. Chat, you guys need to be patient. It's been a while since we had a guest with a webcam on that I actually have to figure this stuff out. There we go. There we go. Perfect. Great. There we go. So welcome into the Popcast. The host of the CCA podcast, Slayer for the Renegades, and his current Discord status is I'm a Div 5, OmaZen. How's morale today?
Morale's pretty high today. I was able to get off of a weekend trip with some friends from Purdue. I'm a Purdue alum myself, was able to get involved with their local community quite a bit. But yeah, good things are going great, both inside and outside of, IRL life. I am Div 5 through my Renegades team situation currently, and we've been having a really good run and have learned a lot together. And, we're just focusing on playing a beautiful game over necessarily getting the strongest stats all the time necessarily and learning as much as we can.
We lost, but we played a beautiful game. That's all that really matters in the end. So how's your LUTI season going? I saw you guys are 1-1 in your group. You got a big matchup against Inkception this week. You got a very tough group. I think 4 teams are 1-1 right now. So you guys are actually in a fun group. How's the season going so far?
Yeah, no, I mean, overall, I think we got off of a little bit of a rough start. We went against a team by the name of Regalia. I believe they were formerly Division 4 last LUTI season, last summer, I think. And this season, they're placed in Division 5, so they got bumped down a division, but they're still a very threatening team, a very strong team overall. And we were able to go 3-5 against them, and it was sort of a very back and forth set. Like they would win a game or two, we would win a game. And we kind of took a lot of notes from that of like where we need to improve on. In particular, for instance, some of our modes were a little bit too scrappy to our liking, and we're trying to go in with some more concrete game plans. So that I think that really shone and shined through our second week set, which was against Oracle. And we were able to go 5-3 against them. So kind of heading into this next week, we are definitely looking to do our best and continue to, ease up a little bit, try to iron out some of those little kinks we've been having going on.
Do you scout out your opponents? Like, have you already got some sort of like a scouting report on Inkception?
Well, I did formally play against Inception in December 2024's Low Ink with Idiots in Chat, with all of them. Tentatively might be playing this weekend with them as well, assuming there's no odd hiccups. But yeah, we did win that match back in December against them. So I kind of know what to generally expect from their team. Granted, it's also been 3 months already, which is crazy to think about in its own right. But yeah, we will be doing some scouting out. That is something we like to try to keep our toes on a little bit, just to like, okay, here's what we might be able to expect. Unless if they throw a little bit of a curveball at us. But yeah, we do like to try to be prepared.
Now, let's transition into CCA. Let's just get this out of the way right off the bat. I don't like talking about Maplist because in the grand scheme of things, who cares? However, it would be a disservice to the CCA listeners of this if I didn't ask this question. The Maplist for this season. How do you explain that?
Yeah, so I think what we with the CCA aim to try to do with either map lists or just how we format the week to week and the season as a whole, or just our events, like with stuff like Circuit even, is that we really do put a lot of love and care into it, and there is a lot of like genuine thought that goes into it, believe it or not. Like there was a very long call that went on for several hours of just what the heck the map list should even be in the first place. And I think something we try to do to a certain extent without going too in depth is keep things interesting, but also somewhat still meta relevant. So there's always going to be those handful of maps and modes that you expect in your map list, right? For the most part, those are still there. Your tower control ink blots, for instance, stuff like that. But we also try to change it up a little bit, and I think some people don't really like that, obviously, because it's not like I don't know, it's not the super clean map list that they would expect, but that's also partly the game too, right? Unfortunately, Splatoon 3 doesn't have the like cleanest or most popular chunk of maps and modes available off the get
Yeah.
go to most people. So it's a little bit of a toss up. It's like you can have the most vanilla season ever, um, and everyone just knows what to expect. Everyone has their own game plan going in, or you can try to keep things spicy, right? So we try to balance that to the best of our ability, but you're not going to make everyone happy, right?
No, you're not. And from what I've seen, a lot of people haven't been happy about it. But I appreciate you answering the question, anyways.
Yeah,
I had to get that out.
fair enough.
So let's just assume that you are talking to somebody and they know what Splatoon is, but they've never heard of the CCA. How do you explain the CCA to someone who's never heard of it before?
Yeah, so I would describe it as kind of like your NCAA, but for Splatoon, in a way, really, at the end of the day. CCA really provides an environment and just a whole wide variety of opportunities, both within our community itself and also the more official events that staff members such as myself help put on, either if it's through production or stuff like TOing or even other things behind the scenes. And it really just makes things a bit more accessible to people who don't even know where to start. For instance, I know that the high school scene in some ways kind of gets a bit more support from entities such as Nintendo, or maybe it's just a little bit more accessible to some people. That's been a growing thing I know of. I have a few family friends that currently partake in high school esports, but when it comes to college, you sometimes see a few things. Maybe you sometimes see a Valorant team, you sometimes see a League of Legends team, but stuff like Splatoon is a bit more grassroots in nature, right? And it's a bit more hard to come by stuff that seems a bit more official, things that may, like, you can try to convince, like, a professor or some member of admin at a school, like, that this is something that you should even spend time from an organizational standpoint setting up. So the goal of the CCA is to try to make that as easy as possible for members of our community to really try to invest in and help grow their own scenes. Um, so there's that kind of level to it, and it also just provides also a more stable environment for a lot of those teams as well. There's something to always look forward to each and every week, or in the case of Circuit, there's a big event happening once or twice a month. Um, and yeah, that's mainly our main goal, just to keep things as accessible as possible for a lot of students.
In something I like to drive home whenever we talk about the CCA or why
Mm.
there are no more lands across the country or whatever. If I'm assuming when most people go to their college professors, whoever, and they're like, I want to do Valorant. And they're like, okay, what do you need for that? The computer lab that already exists. Like it has everything you need already. Okay, well now I want to do Splatoon. Okay, what do you need for that? Switches, docks, monitors, headsets, all the like the amount of equipment you need for this game is insane compared to like every other esport that you could think of. Is that still been a hurdle for a lot of colleges? Is just kind of like finding finding somebody who's like understands all the equipment that's necessary for something like this and the space that's kind of needed.
No, it absolutely is. And I think as time has gone on, a lot more people have started to understand it, or at least universities, just as a conglomerate or like as an organization, have started to try to put more funds and just attention towards like what's actually needed. And they're starting to listen to students more who want to get involved in it. But When it comes down to it, typically what you see a lot of times still these days is that like heavy grassroots element to it. People will come into a club meeting. I know this is the case with Purdue at the very least when I went there as a student. People will come in with their Switch setup as a whole, right? They'll have their dock, they'll have all their cables, they'll have their console as well. And typically people will try to meet up in a computer lab most of the time. In some cases, that might also be in an esports arena, although obviously that's a bit more few and far between overall. But yeah, it definitely is kind of tough to come by with a lot of that. Some schools do offer the opportunities to get grants and other sorts of funding. My second year as a club officer with Splatoon at Purdue, we were able to actually secure a pretty large grant from the university to invest in the local scene as a whole. And through that, we were able to invest in a lot more dock setups, and it ended up actually, surprisingly enough, being a very good thing for even people outside of our direct organization, where people who are looking to go into the local Purdue Esports Center could now use their Switch setup for any game. So a lot of times that was going to be Smash Bros, obviously, but people looking to play other games as well could also do that. And I think stuff like that is what really needs to be called out to, right? I think it kind of correlates to a certain extent with stuff like Riptide, where Riptide is an accessible event in part due to how big of a Smash event it is too for a lot of Splatoon players. If Riptide was only a Splatoon event, we might not be able to get the Kalahari, right? Um, so that's how I like to kind of think about it, but it definitely is a bit of a tough thing for a lot of students to try to work around, and it's something that I hope kind of gets better with time.
How's the Purdue club doing nowadays? Because
Oh
like I
yeah.
remember when Magic was running that thing,
hmm
and then ITAP kind of became the feel good story of the year. How's Purdue competitive Splatoon doing at Purdue?
No, great question. I think overall they've been doing really well. Um, as of CCA Circuit, which was the fall 2024 semester event, they had 5 teams competing or at least signed up. Um, so they've had quite a bit of growth already there, where it's not just necessarily ITAP. There's a lot more team activity happening, and the organization itself has also grown somewhat substantially. Um, like the weekly meetings, from what I've heard lately, because I still do stay in touch with a lot of my old friends and other people from the club still, and they're still going strong with a lot of the events. Club meetings have like 30 or so people in them. Um, they have their collegiate invitational coming up at the beginning of April, and I believe tentatively there's supposed to be about 10 or so teams maybe showing up, just some sort of ballpark around there. And even for a relatively small LAN, that's still really good in its own right. So I think overall there's a lot of good things to like expect to come out of both scenes like Purdue and also other ones as well, hopefully as well.
Yeah, 10 is a large number, especially for something like like college focused like that instead of just like a anybody kind of open invite kind of thing. I mentioned ITAP, but I don't want to discredit the psychedelic air launchers as well for the time that they had.
Yeah,
Um,
I was on that team too. I definitely don't want to necessarily do that either, but it was a fun group of gamers.
so how many teams are playing in the CCA this season? And how many were playing last season as well? Do you have that specific information?
Yeah, I do. So let me pull up on the side here. So, um, currently this season, we have 166 individual teams competing in the league across 8 divisions. So, largest number of teams ever, also largest number of divisions ever. I believe previously our highest number was 7, and that was a little bit more of a one-off as we were trying to adapt to a relatively larger league coming off of around 60-ish teams in season 2. Um, and in the circuit, we had 150 teams. So it's not like the biggest jump in growth rate, but it is a still pretty large number overall to think that okay, we're kind of we're getting close to 200 now. 200 is a pretty big number to think about,
Yeah.
especially nationwide.
Now these are as you were kind of talking about with Purdue, Purdue has multiple teams that are playing in this. Is that kind of the case for most universities where they have multiple teams? So it's not just like 100 different universities. It's just more so like a good chunk of universities are just really buying into it and sending multiple teams.
Yeah, no, great question, absolutely. And I think typically what we see, and I can try to pull up a bit more of a concrete number as well, but we have 124 universities registered for CCA
Oh,
League
wow.
Season 6 this spring. And obviously, that number doesn't completely correlate to multiple teams being at each school, but what we generally do see is um, it once like that first initial team appears at a university. So, like in the Purdue example, right? ITAP was the first Purdue team to exist. Eventually, because of that, the organization was able to grow partly a little bit more. There was a bit more investment from the university because they recognized, oh, we have a team here, and stuff like PAL was able to show up. More recently, these days, there's a couple other teams by the name of Walk, Bash, Do, and Push, all named after like different Purdue University buildings in our case, which is a little cute thing that they've kept up. But what we typically see is stuff like that, right? Where that initial team kind of creates a spark for other groups of students to also get more invested and try to push competitive themselves, either if it's with the CCA or other collegiate or non-collegiate events as well. So I think typically these days we're starting to see a bit more like twos and threes at schools, but overall, um, I think it's generally one for each school right now.
How's the season going? You mentioned there's 8 divisions. This is the biggest division, all, and that's just 1 through 8. There's no Division X or X plus thrown into that. How's the season going so far?
Yeah, so the CCA season is going great so far. We've had a very smooth start, um, and that goes for both behind the scenes and kind of in the whole just competitor view and also the viewer view as well. We've had a lot of interesting matchups so far through our different divisions, particularly in Division One. Sometimes we see what we like to call internally at staff a circle of suck, where one team takes a set off a team and then another team takes a set off another team, and you get this weird like three-way tie
Uh-huh.
almost. And currently, we're sort of starting to see that with the VCU Big Fat Sea Cows, NJIT Splatlanders, and Central Michigan. Central Michigan being a newer team with the CCA of some kind of top level and mid level players who are looking to maybe get a little bit of their footing in collegiate. But we've seen some of that. And also on the production side, things have been pretty cool as well. I do want to give a shout out to Neptune from our production team and also community members Shu and Koreki, who put on the very first Japanese voiceovered CCA match, which is currently live on our YouTube channel right now. So we have Japanese commentators through that via Koreki and Shu, and it's kind of a first, I think, for the scene relatively. I don't remember the last time we've had a something like that happen,
Yeah,
at least in a
we.
while.
I mean, we've had with like super jumps, we've had people reach out to us and say, "Hey, can we do a French broadcast
Hmm.
of your tournament or something like that?" We might have had like a Japanese broadcast of something, but no, it's mostly the other way around. It's mostly Japan's doing something cool, and then we send Nine and Magic to go do an English broadcast of it at like 3 in the morning. Um, but yeah, that's cool. I have a lot more questions about that, but I don't want to burn up all of our time on that. But
Yeah,
that's a
no
really
worries.
cool thing for
Hmm.
that. When divisions come out, do you have a complaint about your div channel where people can talk about scrubbing their grubbing?
Oh, yeah. We do love scrubbing or grubbing at the CCA. There's a lot of that happening. It's become a meme over here too. I believe that's where it originated from Krona.
Okay,
Lovely,
so it's
my
it's
lovely
y'all's
co-host.
fault that that channel
Yes,
became a
it
joke.
is. It is our fault. But yes, we don't necessarily have a channel solely dedicated to it. What we like to do is we like to um, put everyone on their own channels where they can complain about it. So you don't like you got Division 3, well, complain to the rest of your Division 3, um, members.
I'm better than all of y'all. This is ridiculous. That's the
Exactly.
only ones who could see it. That's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
So Luti's going on at the same time. Uh, does that help or hurt CCA with Luti competing at the same time?
I think for a lot of new teams who are only now just getting exposed to collegiate or competitive Splatoon in general, it maybe is a little bit of a drawback at times because maybe opportunities for them might be a little bit fewer and far between if they're trying to stick only to the collegiate stuff. But I think for the vast majority of community members, especially these days, whether it's with CCA or even LUTI to a certain extent, I think it really benefits both parties because what we've seen, particularly with our community over the past maybe year or so, is a lot of pickups have formed, a lot of just completely original teams have formed that are a spin-off of people who met through their CCA divs and people who have met just through the community in general, have been able to come together and create their own teams. Um, for instance, Tetris Effect is technically a collegiate spin-off, and
Mm-hmm.
they just recently got low ink banned. They got Division 4 and LUTI, so shout outs to them for that. Um, but there's been a lot of cool stuff like that that's spun off, right? And it provides an opportunity for people to kind of dip their feet in both pots. They can still stay committed to this kind of interesting collegiate side of things, but they can also explore a bit further in the community. And LUTI just provides a great opportunity to get some of that initial exposure and figure out maybe where you're relatively placed in some of that. I know the community loves to use LUTI divisions as a way to kind of rank themselves, and for better or worse, that is just how we do it these days. But obviously, CCA divs have their own different set of correlations that aren't always the most accurate with some of that. So I think it provides a good opportunity for people to figure out like what maybe they should be targeting.
I don't know if you have an answer to this. It's a question that just kind of popped into my head. I talked
Yeah.
about on the LUTI seating council, we didn't have a CCA rep who was there specifically to look out for the college teams because we don't know. Like most of these teams don't put, "Hey, we played in the CCA." It's just like, "Butt fart McGee, we're actually representing Harvard." Like what? We did, like nobody knew about that. Has there been any CCA teams as the divs have come out that you looked at and be like, "Oh, they really messed up on these guys. Like these guys are way out of the wrong div."
Um, I'm gonna be completely honest. Looking at it, at least initially, I don't think there were any like too bad calls overall. I do obviously sometimes it'll just happen, right? It's like, oh, I think I should have been dived higher or lower. But when I watched the LUTI div reveal show with my team Renegades, we didn't see anything that necessarily uh, just seemed too far out of whack. So that's always a plus, right? But um, no, it definitely. I think that I don't know. It's kind of tough, right? Because stuff like CCA, I think is we're like a little bit of our own island, but we're also not because we kind of provide this bridge to the rest of the community where they can try to get more invested in stuff like LUTI or stuff like Low Ink or Little Squid League. But it also sometimes gets a little bit iffy with just again how I was mentioning earlier, how that maybe correlates skill wise or just certain community dynamics that exist out there. So um, I think I think overall it didn't go too bad. That's what I'll say.
Good. The LUTI div CCA approved. You've heard it here on the Popcast. We'll take that. So why should somebody who's not a part of the tight knit CCA circle, somebody who's outside that circle, why should they be paying attention? Why should they be interested in the CCA?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of value that the CCA provides to the wider community is a lot of just it's kind of like a birthing I don't know, I was gonna like provide a weird uh example for it, but it's like kind of like where a lot of the birth of like new teams appear, right? So stuff like Big Fat Sea Cows wouldn't have happened um if it wasn't for collegiate Splatoon necessarily, or at least we may have not seen it go about the same way that it still has come about today. And through a lot of that, even though it's not necessarily a be all or end all, CCA does a really great job at providing just exposure as well to a lot of people of what they can expect from different levels of the scene. A lot of people sometimes complain that there's a little bit of stagnation with things that are going on, and uh, I think it's good to have a little bit of variety. And we see that through our different communities and different environments, both in the wider scene and the collegiate scene. Um, and I think just for more is better, really, in this case.
I have a theory, and I think there's some truth to this theory, that the CCA's been around for so long. I remember talking about the CCA with Magic on like episode 10 of the podcast, like 4 or 5 years ago. Um, but it's been around for so long, and we have a lot of high schoolers in this community that have grown up and graduated and have gone off to college, to where when they go to college, they're either there's already a team for them to join and they know it exists, or they know how to like find resources to get one started at their university. um Haya, from Destiny Troops, I knew him since he was 15 years old, and he grew up, he graduated, he goes off to South Florida, and he's been doing great. He's talked a lot about um, how he's been playing with the South Florida team there. So that's kind of an example of like these high school kids now know what to look forward to when they graduate. And it might not be their same, it might not be the strongest team they've ever been on, but it's an actual IRL team that they can kind of bond with people that are in the same school as them. I feel like that's played a large role in the CCA's growth as well.
No, I think I would completely agree too. Um, and yeah, I you put that wonderfully. Just the different different resources that I think collegiate has evolved to be able to provide people, even if it's like just new opportunities in the scene, right? With your Destiny Troops example, like you may have started out in one place, but then you go off to college and it's like, oh, there's this whole community of people I can hang out with in person. I can try to even push competitive with, even if it's not necessarily through LUTI explicitly or other tournaments. There's just new opportunities around each corner, and I think that's really the most wonderful thing about stuff like CCA.
All right, give us some shout outs here. We know about the big fat sea cows. We all know
Hmm.
about them. The Riptide CCA tournament should just be renamed the Big Fat Sea Cow Invitational at this point. Who are the good college teams that we don't talk enough about?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that there are dozens, if not more, that have like really had their own impact or in one way or another on the scene. A few that I did list down that I do want to shout out, and I have like a couple bias picks in here, but um, I think it's definitely worth shouting them out, even if it's just explicitly within our own CCA events or even stuff that has happened outside of the CCA. But when it comes to CCA stuff, big shout out to NCCS Llamas. They're always doing really well in our events. They're always just kind of wowing us each time. In our CCA circuit, they were able to come out and win our Division 4A, if I remember correctly. Really great team overall. Love their stuff. Splatlanders is another great team. They've always been kind of a dark horse ever since they've shown up in the CCA, and they've done a little bit of stuff outside, even recently, outside of explicitly just CCA, whether it's stuff like SOS or other tournaments. And a lot of their members have gone on to form their own pickups and even outside of the Splatlanders team, other teams too. So that's always a really interesting group to see what they're cooking up with as well. Um, Another team I also wanted to shout out was Octos and Squids United Scarlet. They were able to come out
Oh,
and win.
Ohio
Yeah, they were
State,
able to
right?
win. Yeah, Ohio
Yeah.
State, the Ohio State University,
Excuse me.
like to, as they like to tell us, it said. But uh, they were able to come out and win Division Two last CCA circuit, and they they were almost kind of a dark horse in their own right. Most people weren't necessarily expecting them to come out on top and win. But if you look back at the statistics that Hoken from our stats team and a few other members like Astrom and Brenna were able to put together, it's like, oh yeah, this kind of checks out. I they kind of just like slid by and it's like, oh hey guys, here we are, and they just kind of knock everyone away. It's like, dang, okay, you guys are the goats, our bad. And then lastly, the last team I want to shout out right now is the Goomies. I am the biggest Goomies fan ever. I love the Goomies. It led to me collaborating with the Goomies to make the Goomies booty shorts. A pretty funny in collegiate scene joke, but they're a really fun team. They're one of the teams that really just shows what like collegiate can provide to people, both through its just inside jokes, its welcomingness, its friendliness. And I know maybe I put some people off with the way I introduced that, but um, I think there's a lot of different flavors available within the collegiate scene, and it's kind of hard to not find your own group of gamers that you'll definitely have a fun time with.
IPL and the CCA have just agreed to doing a collaboration this season. Obviously, a part of that collaboration is you being here right now and me being on y'all's show on Thursday. What do you guys kind of get out of this collaboration with IPL?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that both of us really benefit from, and the scene as well, be it our community members too, is exposure to both sides, right? So you might have an example like your former teammate from Destiny Troops, where they are participating in IPL events or just wider community events, and they're going off to college. They're at college now. They're like, man, I wish I had something Splatoon related at college. Maybe they didn't want it, but maybe they just bump into it, right? And they see stuff like CCA through IPL, and because of that, they're able to get more involved or at least more clued in on what's happening on the collegiate side of things. And maybe that inspires them to make their own scene or own team or own club, just something along the lines of that. Or on the flip side of things, with CCA, it shows the wider scene what's going on with them to the CCA folks. So people who have only really ever played a CCA league season or two, they don't know what's necessarily available outside of them from CCA events, and they can be like, oh, I can play in LUTI, I can play in LSL, I can play in low ink, I can play in SAC. There's just a lot of opportunities outside available to them, and I think that's really where a lot of this collaboration's true value is going to show.
Did you fill out a bracket?
Oh, for March Madness?
Yeah.
I'm still in the process of that, unfortunately. I don't have my picks finalized. I did want to note, though, because I had a feeling you were going to ask me about that. I would like to say I joined Falco's Splatoon Friends pool last year.
Uh-huh.
And I got fourth.
Yes.
Only reason why I didn't win is because Purdue lost.
Because you're one of those Purdue diehards, and you probably just, this Purdue's going to steamroll everybody. Mm-hmm. And it was the first time since like my grandpa's been alive that they actually curb stomped people. And it's like, okay, fair enough. Who's knocking them out this time? You can't have them making the Final Four again, not after this season.
Oh, but it would be funny though.
It would be funny, but it's not going to happen.
Funny. It's not going to. I think that they definitely make it to round 2. But I think that the state of the Purdue team right now has them in a really sore spot without Zach Eady and a few of their other leading members, that they're just not going to be as up to snuff. And they're going to go down to another one of those low-seeded division teams. So
I like the confidence.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed. But
I like the confidence in, they'll win one game. They'll definitely win one game. Yeah. That's round of 32, baby. You hang banners for that, I'm sure, in West Lafayette. Can you do me a favor? And yes. I think I put this on DRF last time, and I don't think it came to pass. My alma mater, Western Kentucky University, the Hilltoppers, needs to have a CCA team. What do we need to do to make that happen?
Just grab 4 random college students off the road, give them a Switch and a copy of Splatoon 3, and tell them, "Sorry, you're playing Splatoon now," and they'll probably just
Sorry.
accept it.
I'm so bless your heart. You have no idea what's about to happen, but just do this for us. I mean, Middle Tennessee has a team, and there's no reason Middle Tennessee should have one and Western Kentucky should.
They have 2. I think they have 3 now.
They're multiplying.
They're multiplying.
They're
just
like
every season, every semester, just a new one pops up.
Man, it's not fair. It's just not fair. But to be fair, you know, I'm obviously in my mid-30s. College esports, if it was a thing when I was in college, like nobody talked about it. So like just the growth of esports in general, and especially in the college scene, in the past decade has been insane. But somebody who's just like out of college and just kind of looking back at it, and especially somebody who's involved in Splatoon, it's really cool to see this thing continue to grow, especially where it was when it first started out. Do you? I always wanted to ask this question to DRF, and I'll ask it to you.
Okay.
The amount of work that the CCA puts into these things. I mean, you guys are working your asses off for this kind of event. Do you feel the return of investment for the amount of work that you're putting into it personally?
I think we all do, really, and I think that shows through just both the community growth and also the engagement of the community too. Particularly with Circuit, I think it's fair to say that over 1,000 staff hours at a bare minimum went into putting that all together, from just like what the heck would this event look like, actually running them. I know personally, I put over like 250 hours into just my side of things with production and a few other things behind the scenes with content. And there's just so many different avenues that, in part due to that, a level of effort we've all put into it, that has helped inspire new members of the community and existing members to either join staff or get more involved as a leader in some way. Even if it's not necessarily directly collegiate, sometimes you'll see members such as Weef who kind of end up in collegiate adjacent situations, helping run Gatorland and whatnot, and just helping even put that together and help foster a lot of that growth, I think is definitely well worth it for a lot of our staff members. And it's just continued to inspire more growth and evolution with a lot of the stuff we put out, whether it's stuff like the Japanese dubbed match video or other projects we've worked on. Like in my case, me and Krona run the CCA podcast. And then newer staff members such as Vapor and Nito have started working on a project called Lecture Notes, which is kind of just a brief 3 to 4 minute long rundown of what has happened in the past week with collegiate Splatoon. So just stuff like that is what I think we're really here to help, just help grow and nurture, and also just our teams as well.
I'll let you get out of here on that. That's a good way to kind of end it there. First appearance here on the Popcast. Let's not make it a one-off thing. Let's bring you back on at some point in the future. Some good stuff here, and you guys are doing the great Zapfish's work with what you're pulling off in the CCA. So you guys should be proud of what you're doing, and I know your community appreciates it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for giving us this time today, Popgun.
Well,
even though it was a little bit contractually obligated.
Yes, we're checking the boxes here. And I'll talk to you on Thursday, right?
Yeah, I'll see you on Thursday.
That's right. We'll see you then. So that
see you around.
Was OmaZen, representing the CCA and also a member of Renegades that is playing in the LUTI season. So for those of you who have been around long enough to remember Destiny Troops, it was me, a middle-aged 30-year-old married man, surrounded by teenagers who had actual talent, who could be the Slayer while I could be the funny Hydra person. But Destiny Troops has been around for so long that those teenagers all grew up, and Toph just graduated from college, which is really cool to see. To see somebody go from being a teenager trying to figure out life to watching this person grow into becoming an adult that's about to go off into the real world. But I remember Toph kind of being upset about like, oh, the university I'm at doesn't have a college team. Haya going to South Florida and making an impact for their team right away. Clang, I think, did some stuff with the university they went to as well. I remember them talking about that. So a lot of the younger Splatoon community members that's been a part of my life, I've got to see them take advantage of the CCA as well when they became old enough for it. And I'm sure like there's a lot of people that are kind of in that same boat, both now and in the future. They're like, oh, I'm excited to. I don't think anybody's picking a college just because they got a Splatoon team there, but I think a lot of people are going to a college and be like, oh, cool. There's already something here for me to be a part of, and I'm already in the competitive Splatoon community. This is a cool little thing. And seeing Splatoon people IRL just kind of drives home how cool this community actually is when there's not nonsense going on online. That's going to do it for today's episode of the Popcast. Again, I'm going to be on the CCA podcast on Thursday. There's going to be another episode of the Popcast here on Friday, previewing Low Inc. We'll be taking your calls then, along with my top 10 teams that are going to likely win the tournament. Low Inc. this upcoming weekend. I might sign up to do a LUTI commentary block. You know, those things have been pretty fun for me, and they're always after PJ's goes down for the night, but it's almost bath time, so I need to hop out and help out with that. If you'd like to be a part of the podcast anyway, feel free to reach out at my socials, Blue Sky at Popgun, Discord Popgun, YouTube at 25 Popgun, Twitch at Popgun 25. Stay safe, get vaccinated, wear a mask when applicable, and we will see you on Thursday in the CCA server for their podcast. See you then.